Okay, welcome everybody. Guess we're holding our own for introductions today. I'm Sue Wiand. I know this side of the room knows who we are, and that's my husband, Bill. This side of the room, it's your first time here, I think, right? You've been here before. Okay, I thought I and you two ladies are new. Okay, well, welcome. Bill and I are doing a series of friendly little chats with the members of the community on a wide variety of subject matter. Today, this is part 2 of our dowsing series. Now, the reason I asked whether you had been to the introduction, did you by any chance watch it on video? Do you know anything about dowsing?
A little.
I saw you pull out a pendulum, so you've done a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, you done. You haven't.
I have one also.
Oh, you have a pendulum too, so you're familiar with what's
Yeah.
going on here. Okay, I just need to know how far I have to back up to make sure that you guys are up to speed with the rest of the group. Okay, that's why I ask. This is a hands-on class today, so I mean a lot of stuff that we're going to do is on you. Okay, you will have homework because there's a few ground rules I have to lay down beforehand. Okay, this is not mystical, magical, and you're not going to walk out of here and be master dowsers, pendulum dowsers. Okay, so I already established who's been here for our basic dowsing class. Does everyone have access to a computer when you go home to download a copy of Letter to Robin?
Yes.
Yes? Yes? Because if not, you can, Ed, I'm sure would help you do something before you leave. And what you're going to be downloading is this booklet on called Letter to Robin, a mini course in pendulum dowsing, but it also covers all aspects of dowsing. This is what we're going to be using as our basis today, and this was written by a long-time dowser by the name of Walt Woods. This material is, God, he started writing this in 1990. I think the last revision was in 2001. It seems like it's old information. Well, it may have been written on the paper before, but it's still applicable to this very day. But it's basic. We're going to teach you the basics today. You're going to go home and you're going to download this booklet because you will need to sit and follow along with the booklet some of the things that we're going over here today. But this is like learning to play a piano. You have to practice, practice, practice. Okay, so that's on you. I will hopefully get you started today and be able to answer some questions for you. Okay? And please don't worry about how well you do in this class. Everything we go over with you today you can use to practice at home. Okay? And there's no wrong way to douse, and everyone is different. Okay? And don't let peer pressure come into play during this hour. Don't worry about what the person is doing next to you. Keep your concentration on your own experience. And don't be discouraged if nothing seems to work for you now. It may not. Okay, I'll warn you ahead of time. It may take a couple of practice sessions to get things going when you are alone and you're relaxed. Okay? Learning to douse takes time and lots of practice. Just stay positive and be optimistic with your practice sessions. Your tool of choice is anything you want it to be. You are the one doing the dowsing. The tool is simply the indicator. Have faith in yourself and the dowsing system. Time will prove them both. And by all means, please have some fun today, okay? So we'll go back over some basics, and it's just when one acquires a bit of new information, there are many new questions that are generated by it, and each new piece of information breeds 5 or 10 new questions. These questions pile up at a much faster rate than does the accumulated information. No information contains a final truth. It only stimulates more thinking and more thirst for learning. And that's what dowsing will do for you. I'm just going to go quickly over some of the, I'll just review some of these items that we have gone over in the past. And basically it's to get what you're looking for firmly in your mind. And we talked about being clear and concise with your questions. And we'll have some examples of that as we go through. You have to remember to phrase your questions so they can be answered either yes, no, or maybe. A lot of times, Bill likes yes or no, and we had a mentor of ours who said, well, if it isn't a yes, it's not a yes. So all you really need to know is what your yes response is. But some people like the yes, the no, and the maybe. okay? Because that assists them, especially in the beginning, that might be more helpful to you. And then the thing is to accept your original answer, and repeatedly asking the same question by saying in effect that you did not like the first one, you may get another. You don't want to test the system, okay? Once it's firmly established, you don't want to test it. If you get an answer to the first question, before you go on to the next one. And that's especially when you're working with the pendulum. One of the tricks that they'll tell you is when you're working with your pendulum, make sure you stop it in between each question, because you don't want to confuse the movement of the pendulum, and we'll give you a little example of that too. If you don't have enough personal knowledge to phrase a question, then by all means do a little homework and learn how to phrase the question, okay? There's something that we call invasion of privacy, and we're going to show you today how to, when you're programming your dowsing program, the first question that you ask is, may I, can I, shall I? And we'll explain what that is, okay? Know when you're getting tired. You can get sloppy answers, and your performance isn't too good if you're out. One of the things that we learned early on is that for some reason, I don't know what it is, especially if you're dowsing for water for someone, depending on your style, people want to watch what you're doing. And there's nothing that makes a dowser more nervous than to have people watching their every move. Or when we're working with a pendulum and we're working with a client, people like appointments. They want to make an appointment with you to do something. Well, guess what? You may wake up that morning and you may ask your pendulum, can I douse today? And you've got a client going to come walking in the door, and that little sucker says, nope, not today. You have to cancel your appointment. Because in fairness, if you're not functioning properly, you're not going to be able to help that client, okay? So what we do is, generally what we do, especially if we're water locators, we'll tell them, well, we'll be there between Monday and Thursday of this particular week. And hopefully between Monday and Thursday, we will have a perfect dowsing day. We had a water dowser who was tracked by the local well drillers, and they charted his biorhythms. And they knew, nope, don't call him in February. He doesn't have a good track record in February. But get a hold of him in March. He's got a superb track record. Dowsers fluctuate with their biorhythms, the earth's energies, and everything else that's around them. So some days are going to be better than others. So don't expect to be on it all the time, okay? And if someone says they're on it all the time, I think they're fibbing. But that's beside the point. All right, and it just says, remember to douse for free and not for greed, and you'll be very successful. And if you make a mistake, try to learn from it, and keep humble. Okay, so
I just have just one thing about dowsing for free. There are some, expenses that people go through to get to your place or to do, and sometimes your friends they want you to do things, but getting coffee and getting those things, that's not being paid. They're talking about there are some professional dowsers who get paid lots of money to locate water, oil, gold, and do other things. So when I say douse for free, if you are greedy, it's like, how come you can't pick the lottery numbers? If you're greedy, it doesn't always work.
okay, so basically, we really should have table space for everybody to work on, but as you can see, our space is limited here. So what we're going to try and do is improvise a little bit with the books, and hopefully you'll be able to put them on your lap and be able to work with that. And do you want to pass these out, hon? Because I have to stay in frame. Now, everybody knows what a pendulum is, right?
This is just
How many people here have pendulums with them today? Oh, it's wonderful. I had to untwine these little monsters for nothing. Boy. Bill hands me the box, and he says, and they were all together in the box, and you know what happens when you have a box full of strings and wires and whatnot.
the elves get
The little gremlins get in there, and it was one knotted mess, and he hands it to me 20 minutes before we have to come down here. I was not a happy camper. But, all right, so you all have a pendulum. Everybody have a pendulum?
In the future, bring them to Doris. She's really good at it.
Oh, all right. I'll remember that. Well, we worked it out. And obviously, can I just see everybody's pendulum? Can I just hold up your pendulum? Oh, we got some pretty ones. We got some nice ones. So you guys, I think, are a little experienced at this already. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay. Do you all have are your pendulums programmed? Not programmed. If you're using them now, how are you using them?
I just asked my question.
You just ask your
Yeah,
question?
Yeah,
And I want to see a yes and no, you know, I want to make sure that it's responding, and
Okay.
this is just a pendant on a chain.
That's
that
right. That's
you know,
fine.
It works.
That's fine.
My husband thinks this should be a regular pendant. but-
No.
yeah, well,
no.
I got a fancy one with a dragon on the top thing.
There you go.
No.
I have one with an African bead and it's with,
I have a variety and everything works.
This one Bill put together for me. This is a crystal that found me one day. I wasn't looking for it. It found me, which is usually the case with crystals. It found me, and then Bill rigged it up and put it on a chain for me. But I used pendulums for different things. This is my pendulum that I use when I'm working with a client with aura fields and body energy fields and the chakras and that kind of thing. Okay, so that's what I use this for, because the crystal accentuates, say the word for me.
Accentuates.
Thank you. The energetic flow when I'm working with somebody. And I also work with handheld crystals as well, because that helps with the positive use of energy. If I'm doing chart dowsing, you think this size crystal is going to work very well on that chart? No, I don't think so. So what you're going to do is you're going to use a pendulum that has a very fine point on it, so that it's much easier to use a chart like this if this is how you choose to go. These books will be available for us to play with in a little while, but just to let you know that there's pendulums for every purpose, and you might not use the same pendulum each time out. Okay, and this is just another little one that I carry in my pocketbook. It's just a thing. The other thing you have to remember too is the length of the chain that you put on the pendulum. If you get a pendulum that's like this, I can't work with this way. So just simply roll it up on your fingers and get it to the length that you need it. Now we have one dowser that we saw up in Vermont, and she had it like this, about that much, and she would twirl this thing around like crazy, but she knew how to work with it, and that's fine. So if your pendulum doesn't work well at this length, start shortening it up until you find a length at which it works. Does everybody know what their comfortable length is for? If you were working with your pendulum and it hasn't been working exceptionally well for you, then start playing around with it a little bit. Shorten it up, or pick a different type of pendulum to work with. Okay? Now, but you can put a pendulum on this is what we use in the classes. It's just it's a little wooden acorn on a string. And I love to tell a story about my Romanian friend who years ago, when we were into this class business really well, she was telling us that in her culture they douse with pencils. And she explained to us how she did it. They did it, and it's just the way they held the pencil, and they do it with pencils, believe it or not.
and you can douse with your finger.
You
Just
can
hold your hands on. When we used to go up to our sisters growing up, I used to douse for all this stuff, so we know what was expected up there. But you could douse with your finger. It just takes practice. It's a tool that you use. It's just a
an
tool.
indicator. It's an indicator. It's like I explain it is when you're looking for the nails and the studs in your wall, you have a little box, and that box has a little needle on it. Well, you run the box over the wall until the needle indicates. Well, that box is the one who's doing the dowsing, but the needle lets you know where the nail is. So that's what this is you're the one doing the dowsing, but this is going to give you the indication of the information. And it was funny because I took my pendulums out, and I don't carry them that much more these days because I'm more or less a deviceless dowser. I don't need to depend on these babies to tell me what's going on. I just know it from feeling. But I was happy does everybody have a yes response with their pendulums? Well, and I don't know how you, there's a couple of different ways. What I'm going to cover with you today is how to program your pendulum. If you don't have a program in your pendulum now, this might be helpful for you. So we'll go over it briefly. Again, download the letter to Robin, and you can sit and follow right along with step by step on how to do it. But some people say that you can start your pendulum moving, and then you ask for your what's your yes response. And I was very happy to find out that my yes response today is the same as it has been ever since I started dowsing. This happens to be my yes response. Might not be yours, but that's what mine is. And it doesn't matter which instrument I pick up. I like to get it started moving, and then I ask my question and I get my response. This is my technique. Doesn't mean it's going to be your technique. Bill has a different technique. So everybody's technique is different. Some people like to stop their pendulum and then initiate the question and get the response. As long as it works both ways, it doesn't matter. As long as you're getting the response that you know is your positive. Okay? All right. Now, again, you can make a pendulum out of any piece of information, a weighted stone. Now, when you ask your questions, I'm going to jump right into the nuts and bolts of this because you guys seem to be ready. Let's start out with programming your pendulum. I'm going to show you how to do that. Everybody has the piece of paper that's on your lap. Can you work that way, guys? Again, this is the homework that you're going to take home with you. Okay? Now, basically what you're doing is, let me get my right page out here. And I'm going to walk you through it, I guess is the best way to say it. Or it'll be a good day. All right, now what we're going to do is using a dowsing tool, and this is applicable for whether you're using a pendulum, an L rod, a bobber, or whatever tool that you're using. You can program it. And what you're doing is you're starting to get the brain accustomed to what has to go on. And I'll just read through this quickly. Okay, with the holding the pendulum, generally you hold the pendulum like in the drawing, which shows the holding the pendulum like that. Okay. A string or chain held around 3 or 4 inches long will usually give a good swing speed. So that's what they're saying. Average is 3 to 4. It's not written in stone. Work with it. Okay. All right, and it will usually give you a good swing. Because this is a subconscious training or programming procedure, like training your subconscious bioelectrical muscle system to use any device, it is not critical how you hold the dowsing tool as long as it is comfortable and functional. When you write your name with a pen, which you already have a program for, you start the pen and accept it to automatically write your name. And it does, right? You're so used to writing it, as soon as you pick up that pen, you can sign your signature, okay? So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be training your subconscious to independently, without your help, move the pendulum in response to your questions. Don't let anyone tell you that your fingers are not supposed to move. In the lab, if you take fast frame motion pictures, you can see these non-deliberate, subsequently controlled movements on any dowser. The motion is sometimes subtle and small, but it is there. Okay, so now you've got your piece of paper on your lap. Okay, and now what you're doing is now you're going to hang your pendulum directly over the center of the cross. Get my picture here so I can follow along exactly. Oh, thank you, dear. Okay, so at the center of the cross is where the round thing is. Okay. Okay. And okay, directly over the center of the cross, or if you were using a half circle schematic, it would be the bottom of the half circle. And deliberately start the pendulum swinging toward the ready for question. See where it says that? Okay. Physically make it go. This is to start training your subconscious bioelectrical muscle system. It will probably stop. Start it again. You are starting to create a working program. Now, while you have it swinging to ready for question, make it work its way to the yes. And then back to the question. Now do the same thing for no. Each time you will be deliberately helping to keep the pendulum swinging. Practice these maneuvers several times. And hopefully it will be working just a little on its own.
Question, it works fine with the yes. The no, it won't go there, it goes counterclockwise, and that's.
Well, then maybe that's your no answer.
Yeah, this is for people who have not used the pendulum normally and who have not already had that yes and no thing.
You may have already established a program that you aren't aware of, and that may be your no response. So just stay with it for now, okay? So now, of course, when you control the movement of your dowsing tool or your pen, but you can also let the subconscious control the movement. This is similar to writing your signature. On one way to do this is to treat the pendulum or other tool like a person. When you ask a person a serious question, you simply watch and listen for an answer. If you think about what you do, you will notice that you go into a kind of silence, just watching and listening without thinking or even being aware of anything else except the response. When you douse, try going into this silence and just watch and wait for the answer. This is sometimes called the dowsing mode. And once you start the pendulum swing, ask questions to let the subconscious take over. You will be amazed how well it works. Dowsing does take practice, but can be learned rather quickly. Okay. Now we're going to go into what we call the programming of the pendulum. Okay? And this is informing your subconscious what you want is very simple. Anytime you learn something new, you have created a new, additional, or add-on program. For example, you can inform your subconscious to alert you to pick up a loaf of bread the next time you are in the grocery store. It is capable of doing this, or on a more permanent basis to turn out the light each time you leave a certain room. Some people can even program their subconscious to wake them at 6 each morning, and it will. Bill and I don't use an alarm clock. We just tell ourselves 3 times before we go to bed we have to get up at whatever time. And once you get used to programming yourself like that, it happens naturally. So it does work. Okay? Okay, so what you're doing is you're training the subconscious mind to this programming. And this attaches to your dowsing system, both mentally and physically, and how you to move an indicating device, and equally important, the details of what we want to know and how it is to indicate this information. So there's 3 steps to programming. This is also another analogy can be, your computer at home. Your computer comes with a basic, what they call operating system. That's the basic program in the computer. You have to have something there to start with before you can do anything else with that computer. But once you have that program, then now you can add to that program and tell it to do other things. And that's exactly what you're doing here. The program you install, that we talk about installing today, is that initial software that comes with your computer. And then from that, you can build on it. Give you an example of what I mean. Some of your dowsers are regular water dowsers, potable, year-round supply of water. Some of your dowsers are water dowsers, but they're more specified. Like an example is many of the apple orchards up here need a lot of water for their trees. but they don't need water at 32 degrees. They need water at 50 degrees. So when our friend Dowser, the water guy from across the river, he would then have to, depending on what job he was going on, he would have to go into that programming, because when he goes out, he's not looking for potable water. He's simply looking for usable water at 50 degrees that the trees can tolerate. So his programming for dowsing that time is going to be different than the person who's going out to look for potable water to drill for. You see that? You understand why you have these programs? Programs can be changed and they can be adjusted according to what goes along. In the beginning, your program should be very simple and very basic. And then as you learn and as you get more experience, then you can start to change your program up to what you are doing. My program for working with energy on a human being is a different program than the one I use to go out and locate water. Okay? Everybody with me on that? Okay. So, basically what this is saying, and I'll try and shorten this up for you. I just want to get to the, I think I more or less just covered what I was going to go over. Fundamentally is just to make that initial program, get that foundation in there, and then go from there. So now, there's a 3-step requirement. And this is a request for guidance program, and when you're dealing with the subconscious, superconscious, spirit guides, and probably many other aspects, we need their guidance and support. And before I mention the fact that there is a privacy issue, okay, the first thing that you need to put into your program is the question that we say is, may I, can I, should I program, okay? This is to become a working part of all of your dowsing programs and be constantly in effect until you make some changes. Okay? And it has this following meaning. May I is to mean, do I have permission and support to proceed and be involved? And that's very important, especially if you're working with another human being. You can't just jump in and go into their psyche and mess around. Well, no. Can I means, do I have the ability to successfully douse in this area, and am I ready without interfering influences? And should I means, considering all aspects related to the situation, would it be appropriate, proper, and suitable to douse in this area at this time? End of program, thank you. And these are, when you're going to read this through, when you're going to program it, read it exactly the way it's written here, because you're, and sometimes some instructors will tell you, you should read it 3 times. Okay, each step should be read 3 times to really cement that program in. Okay, it's a suggestion. It doesn't say here 3 times, but that's one trick that we've been told over the years is good to do. Okay, now we're not going to worry about water right now, so we're not going to program anything about water, but if you were to want to go into dowsing for water, there is a program here to get yourself all set up for water based on what I just said to you about the difference between the 2 water dowsers. Okay? All right, now again, asking the right question. We covered this a little bit in the basic classes. Simply put, if you were to ask a question, is it going to rain? What do you think the answer will be from your pendulum?
Yes.
Sure, it's going to be yes, because somewhere in this world, it's going to rain.
Right.
So wait, that's not a good question. No. Is it going to rain at the library in Pine Bush, New York at 1 o'clock this afternoon? I hope we all got no's for that one. All right, see the difference on how you have to be very careful about the questions? And they give a couple of examples in here, which is very cute, because what he's trying to emphasize is we assume a meaning which may or may not be what is literally meant to be. And there's a little cartoon about 2 people across the table from each other, and the one person is asking the other person, age of parents of living? The guy answers, Mom 105, Dad 106. The first guy says, Are they really that old? No, but they would be if still living.
Oh, yeah.
See the difference? So you have to be very careful about how you ask your questions. Okay? Dowsing takes things literally, very literally. Okay? Also, another point to consider, if you've tried to clear your mind for meditation, you know how thoughts are darting everywhere. Don't assume the subconscious can tell exactly what you want from the jumble of changing thoughts. Not until you deliberately focus and carefully word a question all by itself with focused intent can the subconscious dowsing system know exactly what you want. And in the beginning, it is very important that you write down your questions. And if you have a question that needs to be broken down even further, break it down to the smallest, simplest question. And wait until you get an answer for that question before you go on to the next. Does anybody have any questions about what we're talking about here? It takes practice, believe me, it takes practice, but if you're dowsing and all of a sudden your pendulum is just not responding and it's not doing anything, then you've got to go back to basics. You always have to back up to basics if you're not getting the responses that you think you should be getting. Start your questions out with answers that you already know until you become very confident that the response that you're getting is what you want. If at any time things break down, go back to your basics and start over again. And that sometimes is mainly if you're asking questions that you know the answers and you're getting the opposite answers, something's off. You're off for the day, or you're not asking the questions the right way. There's something there. So you always go back to the basics. Keep it simple. And once you get better at it, I mean, we had a gal who did health kinesiology, which is the muscle testing, which is just another form of dowsing. And she would go through, she'd have your arm there and she'd be going through the questions and you'd be just like this. But she knew what she was doing because she was good at what she did. And she had lots of years of training. So, but again, you have to always go back to basics. Okay, so anybody have any questions so far? Go right ahead.
Can you douse for somebody else without asking?
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
No.
Well, the thing is, that's what the programming is all about. Should I, can I, may I? Because yes, you can douse for other people, but is it okay? Does the universe say it's okay for you to do
like
that?
if I want to say, what does somebody think about me? Do they like me? Can I ask that? Or would I have to
Well,
ask, can I ask?
why would you need to know that answer?
I don't, that's the only
No,
thing I can think of.
no, but I'm just saying, that's one of those questions where, but if you're doing health dowsing, with a chakra chart or with a chart, yes, you need to ask permission
Right.
from, and the thing is, I'm a psychic reader, so I always ask permission of that person's higher self. We communicate, and
Or say my daughter, like, I feel as though something's wrong with her, she's not talking to me or something. Can I
Right.
say, is there something bothering my daughter?
well,
Or do I have to ask
if
my
your
daughter,
program,
"Can I ask?" You know,
right, no,
this-
if your program says that that's what you normally do, that's what the program is for. So you don't have to ask all of these magical questions. It's like she says, dowsing for water. Every water dowser has a program inside them. They know what they're looking for. And the thing is, we'll call a big water dowser. We have a friend that's a big water dowser. If the town needs a well, they can call him in, and he only looks for big water. So in other words, when he goes out, he doesn't care about how many different streams are on the ground, how, whether a well would be good here or there, if it doesn't meet his specific specifications. So he doesn't have to write it down or ask all these crazy questions. He just goes, where's a good spot, and that's it. It's just magical because he's programmed himself. It's like if you're a cook and you're working at home and you're making dinner, do you go to a recipe book every time to measure all the stuff into thing? Probably not, because you're programmed yourself to do all these things without having to do all of that.
But I don't think I answered her question, because if you truly have concern about your daughter, you just wanna know if something is wrong.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Can you ask that, or do you have to say, can
No,
I, should
you
I?
already have that in you. That's what
Okay.
every time I pick up my pendulum, I know exactly what I'm looking for, whether I have permission. If I look at you and I see something, does it mean that I should tell you what I see? Not necessarily. And if a yes or no answer would come in, and I know because I've done it so long, and that's what the thing is. You can go out and ask any question that you want, but is it okay with the universe for you to do that?
Yeah.
Is it okay for you? If it's your daughter, there's probably you're connected with her, so you know if she doesn't want you to do it, you will feel you're not supposed to do it.
Right.
And that's the other thing. If you feel uncomfortable or if it's not working, just back off. You know, try a different question or move on to a different thing. But as you become more specialized in your dowsing, if you want to do that for friends or things,
cat, for
it gets
example.
it gets.
Like my cat, does my cat we have urinary tract problems?
Oh, you can ask, yes.
But I have to ask, can I ask?
No,
No.
Yeah.
It's already programmed.
No, it's in your
That's-
program. But the purpose of the program is to have that automatically there. That what happens is your higher self goes out to if I'm going to work with you, my higher self goes out to your higher self. It's your higher self that's going to come back and tell me yeah or no, yay or nay. And that's going to be an automatic part of the dowsing. So if you douse that information and you're not getting the answers you think you should be getting, it's probably because she doesn't want you to have that information. It's like if I'm working with a couple or an individual and they want to know what's going on, and I go out to ask a bunch of questions, and well, maybe his wife, I'm working with the husband, the wife is having an affair. Not up to me to tell him his wife's having an affair. Unless I go out and ask that question and it comes back, then that means that my higher self went out to her higher self and she didn't have a problem with it. But the point of it is that you don't want to invade someone's privacy,
Right.
okay? But the reason for the program is to avoid that, hopefully, so that you're not going to be allowed in to get that information. Okay, it's just like somebody walking out. It's energy workers years ago had a very bad habit of walking up to somebody and immediately wanting to put their hands on them and touch them. You can't do that. You cannot do that unless you have the right initials after your name. You cannot walk up to somebody and just giving somebody a hug. You really can't do that. Especially, and I know I have people that don't. You cannot hug them. You cannot walk up to them and hug them because you're invading their space. You're invading their energetic space, and you technically can't do that. And a lot of practitioners used to go up to people all the time and grab them, and you could just see the people recoil because you don't have permission to do that. If you're a doctor, you have permission. If you're a nurse, you have permission. Everyday person doesn't have permission to invade another person's space. And you have an energetic space and you have a physical space. You have this mental space.
but you can get permission.
But you can get permission.
But you have to program yourself to ask that permission before you do the thing. And that's the whole thing. It's permission and understanding how energy works. But it's like is there anybody here a specialized pendulum dowser who uses their pendulum for any specific purpose? Because once you become specialized, your program is just normal. You just pick up the pendulum, you go to that place, and then you're able to do. It's like if you're a writer, and you sit down at the computer and you start to type in the story that you're doing. You're programmed. You don't sit down and think about you just do it. And then when you reach a writer's block, it's because your program gets muffed up a little bit. So you have to sit down and go back to where you started from and just go through. You don't have to go through the first step, but go through all the steps so you know what's going on.
I douse for food because of bacteria and pesticides because I have issues with my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
But I do it with the sway technique, and it's usually pretty accurate. But I haven't been able to get that to transform into this.
You have to program that.
You have to program it. What reaction do you want the pendulum to give you the answer that you want?
I want it to tell me whether or not this food.
But how do you want it to tell you? What indication do you want that pendulum to give you to let you know that that's safe? That item is safe for you.
Yes, that I can have it.
Well, then you have to program that in.
And the question that you're asking is probably too broad. Because if you say, is it safe for me? It may be safe, but it may not be compatible. It may be something, it might, so you're not gonna get a good answer if you can't, if it doesn't know what the real question is. Because when you go and you look at the food and you pick it up in the store and you're dowsing it, say, you already asked, well, is this going to be good for me? Yes or no? But the thing is, your pendulum needs probably more specific instructions. Is it compatible with me?
Okay, so I don't have to ask it every time, I just have to program it what I want when I'm.
Right, and you
right?
have to have that
Just
in
program
here.
it once.
Program it, get it in programmed, and then test it out and make sure that it's giving you the response you want, so that when you go up to the item that you're looking at, you're already asking the question by the time you get there. Okay, what you want is you want a positive indication from your device telling you that it's okay based on the parameters that you've given it in your program.
Right, it's usually correct, and my doctor does AK, so I have him check some of them, and so, but I will program it further to make sure
Especially
that
if you have something specific like that, that's
Okay.
a good time to program. Now you can have a number of programs going that's in your little storage box, okay, just like a computer.
Okay,
You can have so many programs working off that computer, but based on how you approach the situation, you already know what program you need to use. You pull it out and you use it, and you let your pendulum be the indicator to give you that response that you need.
And safe, bad, compatible, these are all general terms.
Yeah.
It may be safe for you, but it may not be what you need or what you want at the time. That's the other, it's, you go into a store, you pick up a package of meat, you know, I don't look at the dates on it, but I can tell when I pick it up whether or not it's going to be okay for us. And because it's us, it's another program type thing where you know, if it was just going to be for me, it would be different, but it's for us. So it's just a matter of you have to connect with the universe on what you want. And this is your tool to get the indications from the universe. After a while, you really don't need that anymore because you already have that programmed in, so you kind of do that stuff.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but again, once you become specialized in these, all of these programs are in there, you don't have to think about all of these parameters. That's the whole thing. These are parameters, the questions are specific to the parameters. So if the parameters are messed up, then the questions are going to be not as accurate as you might want.
And that's why we said earlier that if you start to douse and your answers don't seem to be making sense to you, go back to the basics, and just if you have to reprogram, you have to reprogram. It's no big deal. Once you learn how to do it, following letter to Robin, it'll walk you through. You can write it down, whatever the case might be. We recommend 3 times you say it each time you do something, but you can change that at any time, and you can have several programs programmed into you, because it's here that you're programmed. It's not this, it's here. This is just the indicator to let you know that what you're asking with that program is going to tell you, yeah, it's okay, based on your parameters that you put in there. Okay? Anybody else have any other questions? Yes, go right ahead.
I do this a lot for my husband with, he takes a lot of homeopathics
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the, pharmaceuticals.
Right.
And so I generally say, will Carl benefit by taking
Mm-hmm.
this?
Mm-hmm.
And I get a yes or a no. Would he benefit by taking this? Would it be to his best benefit? Is that the kind of question that
That's,
works?
and see,
Yeah. Yeah.
it comes up here, but the connection comes from here. That's the whole thing.
Okay.
Especially when you're doing for someone else, because you are connected to that person. Doesn't mean that someone else would get the same answer that you got because they don't have that heart connection and all of the things. It's magical, mystical, but it's not magic. It's soul talking to soul, so you have to believe that the whole universe is connected, and that's why you can douse for someone else. But sometimes you can't douse for someone else because they have a shield up, and that makes it. It's like looking for treasure. When the pirate buried his thing, he says, anybody who finds, like in Egypt, anybody who finds the mummy, they're going to be cursed and all that kind of. And if you believe in that's the energy you take in.
What I like about, now you can go online and find these books. I mean, everything that we have here I have gotten off the internet over the years. One thing I like about these dowsing chart books is, and you can look at this after I'm done talking about it, but this is a medication compatibility chart. It looks very busy, I know. However, what's good with these particular books from this particular company is they give you the suggestions of the types of questions you should be asking.
That's great.
I don't want to go out of frame of the camera here, but just take a look at that.
Thank you so much.
So it's good to, if you don't know what questions to ask, go on the internet, ask for information, and these charts, especially from this company, are excellent. Because no matter what chart you look at, it gives you recommendations on what types of questions that you should be asking to help you. One of the, and I think I meant, yeah,
would
you
you-
never even
how
thought
would-
about half that stuff, right?
How would you actually, I
Just
mean, you
look-
don't go one at a time with,
No,
How
the-
would you do it? How would you do it? How would you do it?
I guess you ask the question and let this fly, or?
You
so to
have your
speak?
pendulum, you have the chart, you sit with the chart, you start at the bottom of the chart, at the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
You ask the question that you want to ask it and let the pendulum swing. Now this is why a pointed pendulum is
Better.
easier to work with, but
You're
even
losing that
so,
pendulum.
you don't know, if you might not know, because a pendulum is swinging between two lines and you can't get a perfect read on it. What would be your next approach?
Then I would ask individually.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Perfect.
thank you.
Exactly. That's exactly what you would do. This can get you started and it could get you narrowed down, because, I mean, you look at everything that's on this chart, you wouldn't know, but the pendulum will at least get you into the ballpark. So if it's going this way, but you still can't figure out what it is, then you just go, well, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? And you wait until the pendulum gives you a response. You've narrowed it down. You've gotten, if you're looking at a big map and you're going to map down something, how would you expect to start? Some dowsers will quarter off the map, or they'll get it down to small blocks. And the first question they'll ask is this map representative of where I need to be to find what I want to look for? And if it tells you no in the first place, you roll that map up and put it away. But in the beginning, you don't know that. So some people will start going over the map, like this, when all you have to really do is ask that big first question. Am I in the right place?
Right.
If I am in the right place, then you have to start working your way down the line. It's like years ago we took a class on health, and that was my field. So she had a child's coloring book. I think I talked about this in the previous class. She had a child's coloring book. I don't know all the parts of the endocrine system or the blood circulatory system or the neurological system. I don't know what's there. So if I'm going to work with somebody, I need to know what questions to ask. And what this book did was, if you looked at the circulatory system, the whole one page was the picture of the circulatory system in the body, and this side was everything that was involved in the circulatory system. So what would be your first question if you're working with somebody and you got to that page? The first thing you would ask is this, am I in the right place? Is this where I need to be? And if it's come back and it says yes, then you have to go down the list. And how you go down the list is up to you. Some people do it with the fingers, some people just say it out loud. However you need to work it out to get down to the answer, you work it out. Okay, but remember that you're trying to get down to the smallest piece to get the answer that you need.
Wow. Takes a lot of work to
Yes.
practice this.
Well,
It-
this is the
yes.
whole thing. It does take work and it does take practice.
Yeah.
when I do a reading on somebody, I don't use a pendulum. I just look and I tell everybody I'm not a doctor and I don't know exactly what I'm seeing, but I see things that they're not right. They're not compatible with the body. Sometimes it's a hormonal upset. It could be in doctrine. But I get this feeling. I get this message. I can almost taste the thing, and I'm generally right. But the person has to go to the doctor or to go to a professional to find out what the problem really is, because I don't know. I know what the problem is, but I am not a doctor, so I don't prescribe. I don't do any of that. But I can also hear a heartbeat, or I can feel a heartbeat. We kind of get in line with it, and I can tell you if it's bad or good. But then you have to get somebody to help you on what goes on. But as a dowser, you can do the same thing with the charts, with a picture. Sometimes you can use a teddy bear.
I work with chakras. Okay, my papers. Something as simple as this, to work with somebody with the chakras. Now you can work off body or work with the body. Again, I have to ask permission before I touch anybody. So most of my work is done off body. I don't need to touch them. Okay, I just need to be able to read them. Now, there's been a lot of times I've had people laying on the office floor and I'm reading their chakras for them and giving them a little session in the office. But I don't have to do it. I can leave them standing up and go up their body. Or I can simply have them witness this piece of paper and make it theirs. Little saliva on the paper. First I get rid of what. This is all symbolic. I don't think that I'm really crazily doing this. It's symbolic, but this paper's got a lot of other energy on it. So my intent is to remove the energy, and you notice that I am sending that energy to Mother Earth. I am not sending it out to anybody here in the room. This is precaution. And then the person would simply put some saliva on it, and they would witness that piece of paper. Now that meant they're transferring their energy to this piece of paper. So I am now looking at them on the piece of paper. So then I can just sit here and I can douse my heart out and find out. And what's the first thing I might ask? Are the chakras functioning what is compatible for this person? First, get that one, big one, out of the way. And if the pendulum comes back and says yes, you don't have to go anywhere any further as far as chakras are concerned. But if one of them, if it comes back and it says, yeah, they're out of whack, well, now you just got to say, whoa, well, which one? There's 7 of them here. So what do you have to do? You have to go down each one until you get to the one that's causing the problem. Then you know where to go from there. Okay? All right, we're almost out of time, but I just want to make sure now. You know what you have to do. That piece of paper I gave you is yours. You may take it home with you. That's not the only type of chart that's around. I mean, if you prefer to work with a half chart, you know, you can get half charts like what's in the book. But you can go online and download these things. You can even get a blank and make your own. You don't have to. But I find that these chart books, if you're really into it, are the best things only because they give you so much more help with knowing what kind of questions to ask. And once you get good at it, then you don't need this stuff, all this stuff. But in the beginning, when you're learning, you do need help. And it gives you ideas. I mean, even dowsers, as long as we have been dowsers, like I say, there's subject matters that I don't know of. And if somebody's asking me to help ask questions, and I don't know what I'm talking about, I can't help them. So then I have to go home and do some homework, at least to get a basic understanding. So now I can help work them through a situation. Okay, so don't be afraid to not know something. You know, you can learn, and then you can go move forward and use your dowsing abilities to help that person.
And it's
or
just
find
practice.
answers. And it's just practice.
If she read that thing about you get a question, and that question, the answer to that question always opens up the door to other answers or other questions. So you never know everything.
No.
But the thing is, as long as you can find a path, then it works. And that comes from here. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have faith. One thing about dowsing is until it gets turned on, it just sits there. So you gotta really turn it on, and you turn it on with the switch that's here. And then if you work too much with this and you try to make the answers logical, sometimes that doesn't work, because some of the answers aren't logical in the scientific way, the way that you were taught. So you may find a homeopathic remedy that you never heard of, but you don't know what it is, and then you do some research and you find out that it's a product of something else, and it might lead to another way to handle things. So it's sometimes, and if you go into there's a store up in what used to be up in Woodstock, we would go in and they were a homeopathic, and there's just a whole wall full of things. Some people would go in and just naturally reach for that remedy that they need.
Yep.
Because they're already programmed into the universe, and the universe is telling them, this is what you need.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. After a while, you'll find yourself doing things quite automatically, and that's at the point that you've become a deviceless dowser. And that's good, because it's a lot easier walking around not carrying a set of L rods or I used to have to walk every place and bring my pendulum with me. I sat on this is my second session on the zoning board, and my first session on the zoning board, I was really into this learning of this dowsing stuff. And my cohorts at the bench, the first time I came in with my pendulum, I've got a map in front of me that the person brought in, and I want information from that. So what did I do? I pulled my pendulum out and I started getting information. They were looking at me like, huh? Well, after I did that a couple of times and I came up with some good information and some good points, they started to believe that this works. I can't tell you how it works. I can only tell you it does. And we've got years and years and years of scientific evidence to prove that. But we just don't quite understand how it works. But it does. So trust it. And once you start trusting it, you'll find that you'll be using it all the time. And it's most helpful.